You can now go green even when you're dead. Here's what you need to know. Body composting could become a green alternative to burial or cremation after Colorado became the second state after Washington to allow the process last week, according to the Associated Press. One beneficiary of the new law, the Natural Funeral Company, uses boxes lined with waterproof roofing material and packed with wood chips and straw, but relies mostly on billions of microbial organisms already inside the body to initiate decomposition. The box has to reach 131 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 Celsius for 72 hours to kill any bacteria and pathogens. Then, after 3 months, the soil is filtered for medical devices like prosthetics, pacemakers, or joint replacements. Teeth are taken out to avoid contamination from mercury in fillings, and remaining large bones are pulverized before being returned to the box. Finally, after 6 months, the fully decomposed remains can be spread in yards by family members. Currently, Colorado doesn't allow it to be used commercially for growing food for human consumption. This method has 2 advantages over conventional methods. First, it takes up less space, and second, it doesn't burn fossil fuels that can contribute to climate change or release mercury-based fumes into the atmosphere. The problem is that even if this burial method does make total sense, nightmare scenarios like the classic waking up inside the coffin distract from the real issues and make it hard to talk about. Stories like the one in 2013, for instance, when mourners in Zimbabwe were gathered around the body of a friend who inexplicably came back to life, stick around for an unhelpfully long time in our imaginations. Back then, 34-year-old Brighton Damazanthe had been on sick leave from his job at a bus company for some time. His condition deteriorated until one day his wife reported him dead. She laid him in a coffin in their home so friends and family could pay their respects. As people queued to say their final words, Zanthe's employer noticed his legs begin to twitch. Believing the man had returned from the dead to haunt them, people ran screaming from the room as the wife went to his side. An ambulance arrived within 7 minutes to rush the man to the hospital. After 2 days on life support, Zanthe returned to the living, telling amazed journalists, "I feel okay now." On a similar theme, there was also the story in Germany in 2015 when an undertaker got the fright of his life when one of his clients pushed open the coffin lid and asked where she was. The guy was so shocked he passed out. After returning to his senses, he realized it wasn't the start of the zombie apocalypse and called emergency services. Paramedics arrived and confirmed that the 92-year-old woman did indeed have a pulse. She was then rushed to hospital where she died again 2 days later. The nursing home staff were interviewed and questioned how one of their residents came to be diagnosed as dead when she in fact wasn't. One of the staff had reportedly discovered the elderly woman in the morning and contacted their local on-staff doctor to check on her. The doctor pronounced her death and arrangements were made to move the elderly woman's body to the morgue, where the undertaker got the shock of his life. Or finally, there was the guy who kicked his way out of a body bag. The 78-year-old man from Jackson, Mississippi was pronounced dead by a coroner and a nurse too early. The coroner and nurse on duty in the hospice where he lived checked his pulse but felt nothing. He was pronounced dead and his nephew saw them close the body bag. About to be embalmed some 5 hours later, the body bag began to stir. The kicking became stronger and the undertakers rushed to open the bag. The man was raced to a hospital. But the old guy was only able to beat death once. He died peacefully at home a month later. Doctors said William suffered from extremely low blood sugar, a condition which, combined with his medications, may have caused his pulse to slow so much that the medical staff were unable to detect it, leading to the error. We're all haunted by stories like these, but they stop us thinking seriously about different ways we can be buried, even though new methods are actually being developed all the time. For instance, last year a startup founded by a researcher from Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands developed a living coffin made from a special fungus. Dubbed the living cocoon, the coffin is made of mycelium and helps the body decompose more efficiently. It also removes toxic substances such as metal and varnish from coffins and synthetic fibers. Mycelium is a fungus-like bacterial colony that lives underground in the complex root structure of trees, plants, and fungi. According to a report on dothnews.nl, the company has already grown 10 coffins, and these are already on offer in the coffin collections of 2 Dutch funeral companies. Ideas like these have been around for a long time, and different cultures have different approaches. For instance, in 2019, Luke Perry's daughter Sophie recently revealed on Instagram that her late father chose an alternative form of interment in the form of a biodegradable mushroom suit. The mushroom suit, or infinity burial suit, developed by J. Rim Lee of green burial company Koeo, claims to neutralize toxic pollutants such as lead and mercury that are released into the environment during decomposition and cremation. The suit, made of organic cotton, contains biomix made from mushrooms and other microorganisms that aids decomposition, cleans toxins in the body and soil, and delivers nutrients to plants. According to the Koeo website, mushrooms break down material by emitting enzymes and are able to eliminate both organic toxins and heavy metals in the environment through a process called myocore mediation. Koeo's suit requires no special preparations. The body is simply dressed in it and then buried at an optimal depth of 4 feet with or without a casket. The mushroom suit costs $1,500, which the company says is far less than traditional burial options that can run up to $6,000. Koeo also has a version of the suit for pets.
You have many options for what to do with your body when you die. Bury it, freeze it, cremate it and turn it into a diamond, let it take part in a Tibetan sky burial. The list is endless. One option you probably haven't thought of is liquefying your body. No, it's not quite something like this. A Florida funeral home was the first funeral home in the U.S. to use an alkaline hydrolysis unit in 2011. The resumator is a steel chamber that uses a solution of water and potassium hydroxide to dissolve bodies. The chamber is pressurized to 10 atmospheres and the temperature is cranked up to 180 degrees Celsius for between 2.5 to 3 hours as the remains are dissolved. The resulting body liquid is pure enough to be disposed of in the sewer system, while the bones are crushed into ash. Metals, such as artificial joints, are also recovered. Resumation Limited, the company that owns the resumator, says that its units are an efficient and green alternative to cremation, since each unit produces a third of the greenhouse gases that cremation does.
The family of Rita Barraza Aguirre is up in arms because her remains were burned twice. During a routine cremation at the funeral home where her ashes were kept, the blaze accidentally spread outside the incinerator and into the building. Polypropylene boxes that contained ashes, including Barraza Aguirre's, were set ablaze. When firefighters arrived, they began spraying the building down with water, at the same time dousing the cremation room and everything in it. When the blaze was put out, the boxes were destroyed and the ashes of different bodies were soaked and mixed together. Barraza Aguirre's family is distraught and say being unable to bury her remains properly is like losing her all over again.
In Hubei, located in central China, the family of a man doctors had pronounced dead was preparing to bury their loved one when they noticed that the corpse was breathing and weeping. The family rushed Mr. Guo, age 45, back to the hospital as quickly as possible, where doctors were shocked to discover they were wrong. Mr. Guo was a heavy smoker and had been since he was 16. He was known to smoke at least 2 packs of cigarettes a day and could often finish a single pack in just 3 hours. 3 months ago, Mr. Guo had been talking to friends and smoking when he suddenly collapsed. His friends had rushed him to hospital and doctors said Mr. Guo had suffered severe cerebral hemorrhaging and that his chances for survival were less than 5%. Mr. Guo remained in a coma for almost 3 months. Then one morning, the doctors pronounced him dead and informed his family they could take him home to be buried. Who'd have thought he'd surprise them all and resurrect himself? Doctors said they will have to wait until Mr. Guo wakes up to assess the extent of the damage to his brain. Cerebral hemorrhages can cause extensive brain damage that will affect a person's speech, memories, and physical coordination. But if Mr. Guo wakes up hungry for brains, everyone better be ready to run.
2 designers in Italy have developed a new way of burying your loved ones that can turn them into trees. The body is put into a fetal position in order to fit inside the burial pod, which is made of biodegradable materials. The burial pod is then buried in the soil with a tree seed or a young tree planted directly above. The burial pod decomposes naturally and provides nutrients for the tree. The burial pods could turn a cemetery into a forest. Each tree is marked on a GPS system for identification purposes. Friends and family of the deceased would then visit a forest to pay their respects instead of a cemetery full of headstones. The burial pods come in smaller sizes, which could be used for ashes or even for pets. This type of burial is prohibited by Italian law, but is legal in some places in the US and UK. The designers hope to produce the industrial prototype by next year.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.